welcome everybody to the AMS Board for Operational Government Meteorologists webinar. Today is NWS Rapid City, South Dakota meteorologist, Katie Pojorlie. She is going to be speaking on a subject that here at the board we've been trying to address a little bit more, and that's office culture. And so I've done a lot of work with an NRAP on organizational culture, and it's a subject that's we're working very hard to get through the organization. And so I saw Katie talk at a leadership conference in La Crosse, Wisconsin last year, and was very impressed. So without further ado, Katie, I'll hand it over to you. And if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in the chat, and I will do my best to ask them all at the end. All right, go ahead, Katie.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. As Ryan said, my name is Katie Pojorlie, and I'm a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Rapid City. So what does climate change mean to you? Well, I've learned never to argue about it because that always turns into a heated debate. But I think we can agree that when we're talking about office climate, there's always room for improvement. To change office climate for the better, it helps to understand culture and appreciation. Office climate and office culture are related, but they're different. Culture is about values and norms that have developed over time. Climate deals with how people are experiencing the work environment. Culture is the office identity, climate is the office mood. This presentation addresses both. After a brief introduction to our office leadership team, I'll get into our office culture survey, its results, and what to do about weaknesses in office culture. This leads to a topic of appreciation, particularly the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. We've had a leadership team in Rapid City for several years now, and I've been the leader of it for the past 5 or so. We have about 8 people who regularly attend and participate, although everyone is welcome. We meet every couple of months and discuss a variety of leadership, culture, and diversity-related topics. We watch and discuss TED Talks or other helpful YouTube videos, talk about Success Magazine articles, and we lead the office efforts in participating in the annual National Weather Service Week of Service. We've read and discussed several leadership books. One of the books was The 5 Languages of Appreciation, which included taking a quiz. And we also created and distributed an office culture survey, which I'll be talking about next. So again, what is office culture? It can be difficult to define, but it can be described as the values and behaviors that contribute to the office's unique environment. It's your office's personality. So why do we care? Well, office culture can affect how happy people are at work, which can affect their work performance. These can affect retention of employees. Happier people usually stay longer. And obviously, the better your office culture is, the happier and more productive people usually are. So how do you determine where your office is at culturally? You can create and distribute a survey. The results will reveal where your office is doing well and where it needs improvement. Our office culture survey consisted of 42 questions, which were made up of 37 multiple choice using the Likert scale and 5 essay or short answer questions. Out of 22 people, 17 responded, so it was a pretty good sampling of our office. The survey was anonymous, and I used Survey Gizmo, which let me do a free survey and gave me a nice report at the end. Now for the results. Our survey showed a lot of good results about our office culture. The question, people work well together in this office, was agreed with by almost everyone. The text is a little hard to read, so pink is strongly agree, orange is agree, and green is neutral. Everyone gets to do work they enjoy. Most people would say they're happy at work. Nobody said that they're unhappy. And there are several more questions that yielded positive results. We have fun, we trust each other, and the list goes on. However, not all the results were good, as I'm sure is the case in any office. There were two themes that became apparent in the not-so-good results. The first theme was a slight rift between management and employees. I think this is fairly common, as there are two different groups of people who may behave differently around each other because of their different job titles and requirements. As you can see in this question about the openness of communication channels, people generally think communication is easier among employees than it is between management and employees. In the image on the right, blue is disagree and purple is strongly disagree. When asked whether employee problems and complaints are effectively handled, only about 40% agree. Only about half of people feel free to speak their mind without fear of negative consequences, although this could be more so related to people's dispositions in general, not wanting to say anything they might regret. Only about half of people agree with local management's decisions and directions. At least only a couple people disagree. Perhaps the neutrals were thinking it depends on what the decision is. The other not-so-good theme that emerged from the survey was even more apparent. What would you say is the biggest culture problem in your office? Well, ours is negative talk or gossip. I thought the results of this question were interesting because this was the only question out of all the multiple choice questions that nobody answered strongly agree. Most people disagree that people are considerate to others even when they're not around. In one of the essay questions, people were asked for 3 words to describe our office culture. Survey Gizmo created this word cloud, which shows that the most used word was gossipy. Most of the words were positive, such as family, friendly, and fun, but gossipy definitely stands out. In another essay question, people were asked for ways to make the office a better place. There were 4 comments that were centered around gossip and talking behind others' backs. To clarify, I think the majority of the problem is negative talk behind others' backs, not that people are saying untrue things about others. I heard a quote recently which was something like, "The tongue is so dangerous that it's locked behind 2 gates." So now that we have seen the results and we're aware of the problems, what next? Changing office culture isn't exactly an easy thing to do. And if it were, I don't think these problems would be so prevalent in so many offices. Well, the authors of the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace have a few ideas. First, empower people to change their individual behavior. Second, change the structure by changing communication patterns and expectations for daily functioning. Third, don't forget the need for community, the power of visual symbols, and the importance of things like food, music, and celebrating successes. Well, how do you empower people to change their own behavior? Well, awareness is the first step. While we were vaguely aware of these issues before the survey, the results solidified them. For the issues with management, a couple of us from the leadership team sat down with management and discussed the problems in a gentle way. We gave examples of specific things that have happened and suggestions for improvement. And all of the results were distributed to the office so that everyone could read them in full. I think being aware of the problem and empowering people to change their own behavior is the most important thing to do, because it really just comes down to individuals choosing how they are going to behave. Gossiping is not going to stop. We all do it, but it's about noticing it and limiting it. What also helps is asking powerful questions. They force people to think and can allow them to take responsibility. Are you creating more value than you are taking? Do you concentrate on how much you can contribute or what's in it for you? Are you leaving a positive wake? Do you brighten people's day, or are you one of those people that others try to avoid? What problem are you solving? Are you trying to solve something, or are you just complaining about it and blaming others? What part are you willing to own? What have you contributed to the issue, and what responsibility can you take? Specifically regarding the topic of negative talk, we discussed some ways to change communication patterns and expectations for daily functioning. In a leadership team meeting, I asked, what are some good ways to respond to someone who talks negatively about someone else? One suggestion was to tell them you don't want to hear it or to walk away. That would definitely get the point across, but it might be difficult to do in practice. You could suggest that they talk to the person themselves. You could put a positive spin on it. For example, if someone is complaining about someone not seeming to get their work done, you could redirect them to how that person has been really busy dealing with other things. Or you could say, can I quote you on that? And that might also stop them from talking negatively. Another way to improve culture is to boost morale. Get together for drinks or dinner after work. Have fun together. For a couple of years, several coworkers and I were in a bowling league together, and we made it work with our rotating shifts. We also have a couple of ongoing contests at work, a seasonal forecasting contest, and a walking challenge to promote getting up and moving around throughout the day. Have some potlucks. We have them every so often. And one guy has a hot dog roller, so a lot of our potlucks involve hot dogs. Last month we had our annual football kickoff hot dog potluck, and we do a hot dog feed for St. Jude as part of our CFC activities. Have a visual symbol. After the results showed our main problem was negative talk, I made a poster to hang in our office as a reminder to try to keep it under control. I know we all gossip and complain sometimes, but having a visual reminder could help mitigate that. Then anyone who wanted to pledge to try to not gossip signed it. I do think it helped at first, but then I think eventually it became one of those things that nobody noticed anymore and forgot about. So I moved it to a different location so it would be more noticed, and I think that has helped for me at least. Something really important to having a positive work environment is to show appreciation to others and in a way that they will feel appreciated. Gary Chapman and Paul White go into detail on workplace appreciation in their book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. Some of you may have heard of the 5 Love Languages, which was also written by Gary Chapman. This book takes that book and makes it more applicable to a work environment. First, why is appreciation important? Well, according to the Department of Labor, this is the percentage of people who leave their jobs and say it was because they didn't feel appreciated, 64%. In his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey says, next to physical survival, the greatest need of a human being is psychological survival, to be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be appreciated. And this is especially important in government jobs because people can become apathetic when their raises don't usually depend on performance, but rather how long we've been in our job. So the question is not, do you appreciate your coworkers, but rather, do your coworkers feel appreciated? If you aren't speaking their language of appreciation, your efforts are pointless. The 5 languages are the same as Gary's first book: words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and physical touch. However, there are a limited number of situations in the workplace where physical touch is appropriate. A firm handshake, a pat on the back, or maybe a hug after personal tragedy might be appropriate, but they found in their research that nobody had physical touch as their top language of appreciation in the workplace, so that language is left out of most discussions of appreciation. Words of affirmation includes praise for accomplishments, which is the most common language of appreciation in the workplace, but it needs to be specific to be effective, and it's also more effective if it's done in the moment rather than months later. It also includes affirmation for character, which looks beyond performance at the inner nature of the person, which is more difficult to do, but it's more meaningful than praise for accomplishments. How and where to give words of affirmation depends on the person. Personal, one-on-one is most valued. Some people like being praised in front of their coworkers, but some people don't. Some people just prefer handwritten note. However, if you can't be sincere, then don't do it at all. Quality time includes quality conversation. Words of affirmation are about what you are saying, but quality conversation is about being a good listener. Shared experiences can be traveling to conferences together, going out to eat, doing non-work activities together. Some people are more comfortable talking in small groups than one-on-one, so small group dialogue might be better for them. Working together to accomplish something can also count as quality time. But keep in mind, what people want from their supervisors regarding quality time is different from what they want from their coworkers. And also, families come first. Most people would rather spend time with their families than more time with their coworkers, so they may not choose to participate in activities outside of work. Some people prefer acts of service. One thing about leadership is that true leadership requires a willingness to serve others. Before you do, though, ask before you help. Sometimes they might not want help. Sometimes they might not want your help. And if you're going to help, do it their way. Don't try to change how they're doing it. And complete what you start. When talking about tangible gifts in the workplace, we're not talking about raises or bonuses, because pretty much everyone appreciates those, but not everyone appreciates tangible gifts. When giving gifts, keep a couple things in mind. Number one, give gifts to those who appreciate them. Some people get little affirmation from receiving gifts, so don't bother. Number two, show appreciation through gift giving is only effective when there is thought put into it. Lots of people like gift cards or tickets to something, but there are rules in the government about giving gifts. An example of an effective gift from a manager would be time off, or from a coworker would be to bring in some food. There is a difference between recognition and appreciation. Recognition is mostly top-down, while appreciation can flow to and from any direction. Recognition emphasizes performance, while appreciation is more about the values of the person. It can be also about performance, but not all employees are high achievers, but everyone needs appreciation and encouragement. People need to be encouraged even when they're having an off day. Recognition usually involves words of affirmation or tangible gifts, but not all people feel appreciated that way. And some people who do feel appreciated by those things don't want a public display. Appreciation can be in any of the 4 languages. So if you're interested in finding out your language of appreciation, there are a couple ways you can do so. If you buy the book, there's a code included that will allow you to take the online quiz for free. Or you can go to this website where you can purchase codes for your office. If you want to determine someone's language without having them take the quiz, there are a few ways you can do that. You can observe their behavior. Usually the way people treat others is the way they prefer to be treated, although about a quarter of people speak a different appreciation language than what they prefer. Observe what they request from others. If they ask for help, they appreciate acts of service. If they ask for opinions, they might be looking for words of affirmation. Listen to their complaints. If they complain that nobody has time for them, maybe they appreciate quality time. But don't force it. If you know someone's language is quality time, don't spend time with them if you don't want to. That won't help anything. Also, languages might change in different circumstances. During a difficult time, acts of service may become more important to someone when it's normally not their primary language, or it might depend on who they are interacting with. You might appreciate acts of service, but not from people who annoy you. So in conclusion, office climate and culture can be improved, but it takes a lot of time and commitment. It helps to start with a survey to assess where you're at now. Awareness is the first step. Some of the problems won't go away completely, but they can be improved. It comes down to individuals noticing their negative behavior and limiting it, but it's something that can't be forced. If you're interested in doing an office culture survey at your own office, I'd be happy to provide you with the questions that we used. Just email me. And it helps to keep in mind the languages of appreciation. Here's that link again if you want to take the Appreciation Languages quiz. Are there any questions?
All right, Katie, thank you very much. If you have questions for Katie, again, you can put them in the chat thing at the bottom. I know if you're weather service, you might not have experience using this Zoom software. It took me a little while to get going with it, but we have a comment from Trevor Adams who says, "Thanks very much, very interesting." Um, Personally, I liked all the examples you gave of what you did in the office to try to improve the culture, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm always a big proponent of getting out of the office, getting away from the setting of the job to help create those other bonds that might exist, but you might not get to just sitting on shift or in a stressful situation, with the weather all the time. Um,
Right.
so I like that aspect of it for sure, and certainly something that I've seen can help. A couple other notes. Let's see. Another question from Trevor. How receptive were people in your office to participating in some of this stuff?
I think people were pretty interested in taking the culture survey. I was actually kind of surprised by how much interest there was in it, and so I was happy about that. But as for improving things and making positive changes, there's been some difficulty in coming up with ideas that would actually work. So we've tried the few different things that I've mentioned, and like that poster. Like I said, it seemed to work at first, but then kind of tapered off. So it's just been kind of trial and error here, and we're always looking for more ideas. So let me know if you have any.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. That every office setting is different. Every personality makeup of the office is different, and there is no magic formula to this stuff. You kind of have to dig into your own situation and see what works for you. And so that's something to keep in mind. Another thing, I'll just make a plug here for some of the work we did on the office culture NRAP. And one of the things we're trying to do is get a structure in place that gives offices support. Because oftentimes what happens is somebody has, a good idea about office culture. They go to the office, maybe the office is not receptive, and then they just stop, and it goes onto the back burner at that point. So what we would like to do is get kind of culture ambassadors, if you will, or culture mentors that are people who are like-minded on this office culture stuff, that are willing to kind of be a sounding board for offices to support them. So if something doesn't work out, they come back to that person and they say, that didn't really work. And then that person may say, well, this office over here is doing this. Maybe you could try that. Just giving an extra layer of support to keep the conversation going, as opposed to trying something once, it doesn't work, and then it kind of goes away. Meanwhile, the office culture keeps getting worse. So everyone's done kind of different things to try to help it along. And so we kind of want to gather all of that information and just kind of have like a toolbox available for culture focal points or diversity focal points, or whoever's in charge to use.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because I know me personally, it's hard to come up with ideas, and some of them, don't work. So it's like, where do I go from here? So it would be great to have kind of a support system of other like-minded people that are coming up with other ideas to try.
Right, and so this NRAP was more about kind of getting a conceptual model in place. I think the next one, which is the call, is just going out now. And if you're in the weather service, you've gotten that email with the call for NRAP participants. So if that's something you're interested, I highly encourage you to sign up for that. Anybody who's out there listening, and usually they have a manager's team and a field team, so managers included. You kind of need to attack this thing from all sides, and it's really a grassroots effort from within the offices that's going to make the biggest changes. So, our advice is if you can just get a couple people on board and do a few things, and then you gradually can turn the tide as you get people to come over and support these initiatives. So this field team will be more towards trying to actually implement the conceptual model that we came up with. So just a plug for that. Another couple notes: if you missed part of this, we are going to be, this is being recorded. We'll do a YouTube video. It'll be on our YouTube channel, so you can just search for AMS BOGM, BOGM, and you can get the full video. Also, I apologize if some people were stuck in the waiting room a little bit longer. I think that's an option on here that must have gotten clicked on that doesn't normally happen. So I tried to get everybody in as quick as possible when I saw them come in. But again, that YouTube video will be available. I'm sure you can reach out to Katie or myself if you want more information on anything that was talked about today.